Your romance is unraveling. You're not sure why. Is it me or another guy? This begins a series of saloon songs, starting with What Do You Think? How many times did I walk the streets at night, wondering if our love was right, or was it over? How many times did I stroll the beach at night, not willing to say that we could be thinking this way? What do you think when you can't think at all? And what do you think when the love's all gone and you're alone again? So you come back to what's real, to feel what you feel, and hope that sooner or later we'll know what to think again. How many times did I toss and turn at night, wondering if our love was right, or was it over? How many times did you turn away from me, not willing to say that we could be behaving this way? What do you think when you can't think at all? And what do you think when the fun's all gone, 'cause you're alone again? So you come back to your bed and lay down your head next to her, and hope that sooner or later we'll know what to think again. Whoa, what do you think?
Well, yes, it's true. Life does present a lot of situations to make you say, what do you think? Relative to neurosurgery, I recall a story of a young boy. I think he was about 12 years old, and he was operated on many years ago by Dr. Ghazi Yassergil, who at that time in the 70s was known as the world's greatest neurosurgeon. Dr. Yassergil performed this long, tedious, incredibly complicated brain operation on this young lad and saved his life. After he's discharged from the hospital, he sees him in the office a number of weeks later, and he tells the boy what happened to him, and the boy just sits there and doesn't say anything and doesn't give him any kind of gratitude, nod even. So Dr. Yassergil, professor, says, how can you not say anything to me? Do you realize, how can you not thank me for saving your life? With which the little boy looks up to him and says, thank you? Why should I thank you? You should thank me for letting you operate on me. So that's, and we have on occasion come across patients that were not very gracious or just expected the doctors to do everything. And God forbid if anything went wrong, you were to blame for it. Anyway, this does remind me of another story of John Fox. John Fox was one of my mentors, very smart, brilliant neurosurgeon at George Washington University Medical Center, who actually had trained with Dr. Ghazi Yassargo. And when I was chief resident in neurosurgery at George Washington, John Fox was back from Dr. Yassargo, and he's the one who actually taught me my technique for doing the aneurysm surgery, which I did for many years afterwards. Dr. Fox was much more of a humble personality. And I remember making rounds with him in the morning after he did a complicated case, and the patients and the families were all over him, congratulating him, thanking him, and one thing after another. And I remember Dr. Fox saying, just, I really appreciate what you're telling me, but if you keep talking like that, it's going to be tough for me to stay humble. I remember that, and I try to maintain that particular attitude throughout my career as well. Another interesting story involves a 55-year-old Asian gentleman who worked and saved all his money for the last 12 or 13 years to make enough to come to America from his native Thailand. On the airplane, he suffers a bleed in the back of his brain, in what's called the posterior fossa, that houses what's called the cerebellum, which means little brain. So he bled from one of the vessels in the cerebellum and made this big blood clot. Now this is a small area and it won't tolerate anything extra in that space for very long. They're able to land the plane over Dulles Airport in Maryland and then take him over to Holy Cross Hospital. This was on a Saturday evening. They all seem to be Friday or Saturday evenings, these cases, about 10 or 11 o'clock, and I rushed over there. We did our MRI and CAT scan, and I saw this blood clot. Well, we then took him to the operating room. I put him in what's called a semi-seating position like this, with his head bent and his head secured in holders, and then operated on the back of his head. I made this incision down the back of his head into his neck and opened up the back of his skull and took off a bone plate about this big, and sure enough then went into the covering around the brain and found this blood clot in the bleeding vessel and secured it. Well, this did take a long time. Probably by the time we got him to surgery and I finished the operation, it was about 2 or 3 hours, about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And in closing his scalp, as I was doing the suturing, I accidentally had the needle pierced my glove and my skin, causing it to bleed. So we finished the operation. He went on to do fine. But I said, I don't know this man. We didn't have a chance to work him up before. We better test him to see if he has any kind of infection or anything else is going on. Well, we tested him for everything that we could possibly think of. And the problem was that he had everything except insurance. So in other words, I did this operation on this man. We were able to save his life, thank goodness. But again, there was no payment, which happened very frequently in my particular career.